flowers, Kody. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The flowers. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Kody, Janelle, Christine, and Meri has sort of established this culture that there was to be no affection in front of each other. And I know that Kody wants to be more affectionate, but feels like he can't. And I don't know what it was that night. I just went, my husband gave me flowers. I'd like to say thank you. I'd like to give him a hug and a little kiss. And I think everybody should.
Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. Alright, so let's just dive right in because Robyn Brown has once again proven herself to be a total liar, and I've got the receipts to back it up. For years, Robyn's been saying that all the wives should be totally fine kissing Kody right in front of each other. Yep, that's what she claimed. And the funny part, there's actual footage of this from 2019, during what was probably the Brown family's last ever Valentine's Day celebration together. Maybe, I can't say for sure, but it sure looked like it. They had this cozy little fondue night while living in Flagstaff. They had just moved there, and it seemed like they were trying to make things work. Kody, of course, showed up with bouquets for all the wives. Then in the middle of setting up for dinner, Robyn walks over, plants a kiss right on Kody's lips, while he's literally holding one of the kids. She shrugged it off, saying it was just a quick kiss, and that she believed every wife should feel comfortable showing affection like that. But fast forward to this season, and suddenly Robyn's acting like she doesn't even know how to be affectionate with Kody at all. Like what? It's absolutely wild. Anyway, let's get into the next layer of lies from Robyn, because there's plenty. In the new episode airing this week, the whole thing centers around Coyote Pass. There's apparently this tense standoff happening out there, and guess who's the one most reluctant to see Janelle and Meri? Yup, Robyn. And why, you ask? Because apparently there's been some serious trash talk going around. But here's what's so funny about that. Robyn seems to have completely forgotten that she's the one who, during a past tell-all, accused the other wives of not being good customers for Kody. She's the one who said they nagged too much, fought too much, and even made comments about their looks, calling them fat, saying they had stretch marks, and blaming them for Kody's issues. Like, come on. She basically implied that if they weren't giving Kody what he wanted, it was their fault if he went elsewhere. And now suddenly, she's all sensitive about people talking about her? Please. So in this week's teaser, Kody actually admits that at one point, he thought about calling up Janelle behind everyone's backs, including Meri and Robyn, and doing a secret deal to sell Coyote Pass out from under them. He literally said that, which, first of all, is ridiculous. I don't even think that would have been legally possible based on how the properties were owned. But even if it was possible, like, hypothetically, why on earth would Kody be mad at Robyn over the sale? What would have pushed him to even think about doing that behind her back? Well, let's break this down. Technically, Robyn and Kody own 2 parcels of land at Coyote Pass together, both as community property with survivorship rights. One was a larger piece they'd once shared with Christine, and the other was a smaller 2.42-acre parcel they'd always owned just between the two of them. Both were set up so that if one died, the other would automatically inherit. So really, Kody couldn't sell any of it without Robyn's approval anyway. Now, Janelle and Kody did have one parcel they shared together, which, technically, they could have sold separately. But that was also just a small 2.42-acre lot. The other one, they co-owned with Meri as joint tenants, meaning all 3 had to agree for a sale to happen. So yeah, all that, I was gonna sell it behind their backs talk from Kody? Total nonsense. Before all this legal back and forth happened, the properties were structured in such a complicated way that everyone had to get lawyers involved just to sort it out. They even had to make legal agreements so it wouldn't turn into a full-blown lawsuit. At one point, Robyn even filed a disclaimer deed with the county, basically saying she was giving up her claim to certain parts of the land because Kody had purchased them separately with his own money. So technically, she was admitting it wasn't hers to begin with. When you put all this together, here's the math. Robyn had about a 52% combined claim with Kody, while Kody himself technically held around 71% equity in the whole property setup. So between them, they had roughly 71% ownership altogether, and Janelle and Meri were left with less than 30% combined. Obviously, that had to be fixed, otherwise it wouldn't have been fair. Kody came up with this plan to sell Coyote Pass right around the same time he and Robyn were trying to buy a new house, a $2.1 million one, by the way. Now, I did some digging to understand how Kody would even qualify for such an expensive home. He once claimed he needed the Coyote Pass money to qualify, but honestly, I don't think that's true. The property deeds didn't change hands until after they had already closed on the new $2.1 million house. The mortgage itself was $1.6 million. So, let's talk about that kind of loan. They took out what's called a jumbo loan, and I can tell you that's a big deal. Jumbo loans are basically loans that go over the federal lending limits that are normally insured by programs like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Anything higher than those limits is riskier for the lender because it's not backed by the government. That means if the borrower defaults, the lender eats the loss. No safety net. So lenders get very strict when it comes to qualifying people for jumbo loans. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Kody and Robyn don't have regular 9-to-5 jobs. They're not W-2 employees, they're paid as contractors for TLC. So that means no pay stubs, no salary history, nothing straightforward. To qualify, they'd have to show 2 full years of tax returns and 1,099s proving consistent income. They'd also have to prove they had significant liquid assets, cash in the bank, investment accounts, or anything they could easily access if needed. And since they don't have guaranteed income, lenders usually make people like them show a higher net worth too, meaning property equity counts big time. So Kody probably used his 71% stake in Coyote Pass as part of his financial portfolio, basically telling the lender, "Look, I've got over $1 million in real estate equity tied up here." That helped them meet the qualifications for the loan. With jumbo loans, you also need excellent credit, typically 700 or above, and you got to show proof of cash reserves. Usually, lenders want to see that borrowers have enough money to cover 6 to 12 months' worth of full mortgage payments, including principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And considering their monthly payment was likely over $12,000, that means they would have had to show at least $144,000 sitting in the bank, just in liquid reserves. On top of that, their debt-to-income ratio would need to be below 43 to 45%. And let's not forget, they also had to come up with around $420,000 for the down payment. Kody and Robyn also used the equity in their old house, the Hashknife home, as proof of additional assets. That property was another piece of their financial puzzle when applying for the loan. When they eventually sold that house for $1.75 million, they still owed about $700,000, which means they walked away with somewhere around $1 million, probably closer to $800,000 after all was said and done. So between that and their Coyote Pass stake, Kody and Robyn were telling the lender they had about $1.8 million in real estate equity combined. And that's how they made the deal work to qualify for that expensive new house. Now, here's where the real fight between Robyn and Kody comes in. And no, it's not about Kody needing money from Coyote Pass to pay down their mortgage, because honestly, he didn't. Their new house wasn't dependent on selling that land first. If it had been, the bank would have made them sell Coyote Pass before approving the loan at all. So that excuse, totally false. What actually happened was this. Kody and Robyn closed on their $2.1 million home first. Then, about a month later, they sold the Hashknife Trail house. Once that's sold, they cashed out the equity. Part of it went toward their down payment, and whatever was left probably went straight into savings or debt payoff. But here's the thing. Coyote Pass was still sitting there as unfinished business. And remember how Kody and Robyn had claimed over $1 million in equity tied up in that land? Well, because they're married, Robyn legally had to sign off on any decisions about it. So if Kody ever wanted to add Janelle or Meri to their parcels, like, "Hey, I'll put their names on our property so things are fair," Robyn could simply say no. And you bet she did. She had every right to refuse because the land was filed under community property with rights of survivorship. That means she legally owned it just as much as Kody did. So she could easily block him from adding anyone else, and she could also block any sale of the parcels she was listed on. Robyn always claimed she wasn't going to move forward with anything until everything was fair. But come on, fair meant fair for her, not for the other wives. At this point, all the other women were already getting their fair share based on legal agreements worked out by lawyers for everyone involved. The deal they eventually made said Kody and Robyn would get 50%, while Janelle and Meri each got 25%. That's how the proceeds from selling Coyote Pass were supposed to be split. And guess what? That's already a fair deal. The money for Kody and Robyn was treated as community property with those same survivorship rights. Meaning, if Kody ever dies, Robyn automatically becomes the sole heir of that portion. She doesn't have to share anything with any of Kody's other kids. That setup completely shuts out the rest of the family. None of Kody's kids from his other marriages would see a dime unless he specifically mentioned them in a will. If Robyn had agreed to hold the property differently, say as joint tenants, then if something happened to Kody, the property could have been split between Robyn and Kody's other heirs. But Robyn made sure that didn't happen. She wanted full control. That's exactly why she pushed to keep it listed as community property with survivorship. It guaranteed that everything would flow directly to her, no questions asked. So yeah, Robyn's been playing the long game here, all about money and control. And this fight with Kody proves it. Now get this, the house they currently live in is owned under a trust that lists only Kody and Robyn. Nobody else. Not the other wives, not the kids, no one. That means the property is completely blocked off from the rest of the family. So, if Kody dies, the trust says everything goes straight to Robyn. No one else gets a cent, unless Kody secretly arranged some other trust or will to distribute money to his kids. But based on how Robyn's operated so far, you can tell exactly what her motivation has been: protect her assets and keep control. So, let's circle back to what the real fight was about. It wasn't some spiritual fairness argument. It was cold, hard money. For Robyn to sign off on selling the land and agreeing to the 50/25/25 split that Kody, Janelle, and Meri's lawyers had already finalized, she had to give up over $300,000 in equity. If she had stuck with the original ownership split, she and Kody together would have walked away with roughly $1,065,000. But under the new deal, they were only getting about $750,000. So, Robyn basically had to swallow a $315,000 loss. And that's what all this dragging of feet and endless arguing was really about. The irony? She's already living in a $2.1 million house. But she still couldn't let go of a few $100,000 from land they weren't even using. Honestly, I think Kody's motivation was simple. He wanted that new house because it had a compound feel. That's what Robyn always dreamed of. The place has a big main house and a guest house, which, knowing Kody, he probably calls space for future concubines, or something ridiculous like that. Once he got that big, fancy, family compound home, you'd think Robyn would have been ready to finally sell Coyote Pass. But nope. She dragged it out. Kody had started talking about this land sale with the other wives way back in September, and by December and January of 2025, they'd all reached an agreement. He and the women, meaning Janelle and Meri, had already signed off and formalized everything in January. Robyn, though, she refused to sign until March 6, 2025. Then, finally, everything was officially recorded on March 27th. The property sale went through in April, and it was recorded by the end of that month. So let's do a quick recap. Kody, Janelle, and Meri all agreed in January 2025 to sell Coyote Pass with a new fair split, 50% for Kody and Robyn, 25% each for Janelle and Meri. Robyn dragged her heels for 2 more months because she didn't want to lose $315,000 in equity or give up her control. In other words, she stalled the whole process, and that's why Kody was so frustrated. At the end of the day, this wasn't about property, family, or fairness. It was about greed and control, plain and simple. Robyn didn't want to sign until she could be sure she was getting what she wanted, even if that meant delaying everyone else. And remember, this is the same woman who once accused Janelle of never helping her with money for a down payment, which Kody himself later admitted wasn't true. She's denied owing anyone money, twisted the narrative, and now she's back at it again, fighting over $315,000 while sitting in a multi-million-dollar home. That's Robyn Brown in a nutshell. It's fair, only if it's fair for her. So now you know exactly why Kody and Robyn have been clashing over money. It's not about love, loyalty, or land. It's about Robyn not wanting to lose her piece of the pie. Anyway, besties, that's the full breakdown of what's really been happening behind the scenes at Coyote Pass. All right, besties, let's wrap this whole messy situation up neatly. So here's what actually went down. By January 2025, Kody, Janelle, and Meri had already finalized their agreement. Everyone was on the same page. Kody plus Robyn would keep 50%, Janelle would take 25%, and Meri the remaining 25%. On paper, it was completely fair. But of course, Robyn wasn't satisfied. She kept repeating, "I'm not signing until it's fair." The irony? It was already fair. She just didn't like the numbers because they weren't tilted in her favor. She dragged her heels not because she wanted equality, but because she wanted control. Robyn delayed the process for months, refusing to put her name on the dotted line until she could twist things to benefit her. Eventually, it came down to the money. Robyn knew that signing that contract meant giving up more than $315,000 in equity she believed was hers. Kody and Robyn together stood to lose a piece of their combined stake, and she hated that. This whole fairness act was never about principle. It was about power and greed. She stalled, questioned, and nitpicked every part of the agreement. While everyone else had already agreed and moved forward, Robyn kept things frozen until the last possible moment. She finally signed off in March 2025, after keeping the other wives waiting since January. And get this, the final paperwork didn't even get officially recorded until March 27th, and the sale wasn't completed until April 2025. So yes, Robyn literally held up the sale for months, fighting over money that, by any fair measure, wasn't just hers to keep. When you break it down, that's what all this drama was really about: control, greed, and power. She wanted to keep the upper hand, to make sure everything flowed through her and Kody only. Remember, she once claimed that Janelle never gave her money for the down payment, even though Kody himself has since admitted that Janelle actually did. That tells you everything you need to know about Robyn's version of truth. This is the same woman who's denied owing anyone a cent, who has twisted financial stories for years. And now, surprise, surprise, she's digging her heels in over $315,000. So yes, besties, this whole thing, from Coyote Pass to the trust documents to the delayed signing, wasn't about family or fairness. It was about Robyn making sure she came out ahead every single time. And that's the cold truth. Robyn's fight wasn't to make things fair, it was to make things benefit her. That's why she delayed, why she pushed back, and why she framed herself as the reasonable one while everyone else supposedly caused chaos. At the end of the day, she wanted to secure her place, her money, and her control. So when Kody and Robyn fought, it wasn't over emotions. It was over equity, greed, and power. And that, my friends, sums up the heart of the fight between Kody and Robyn Brown. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know what you think about this messy situation. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and of course, click the bell so you never miss my next deep dive. Thanks so much for watching. Love you, besties. See you in the next one. Kiss mark.